Most people are doing their projects for African history with simple PowerPoints and just simply reading off the slides. For me, I decided to take it a little different route. There's a series on YouTube called Crash Course that I know Dr. Fulton is obsessed with and enjoys those videos. So I decided to take my African history project and use it as a crash course video for you all. My topic is the Middle Passage and slavery and how it affected the people of today as well as back then. So the Middle Passage was the transport of slaves from Africa to the West Indies and up to North America and the New World. Now, the Middle Passage is not a great time to remember for our history because of the lives that it took and the things that it did to people. The Middle Passage would force people 2 by 2 onto boats where they were sent down to the bowels of the ship and placed like sardines on very tiny beds that were unfinished and hard wood. Now, these slaves were usually only fed 1 or 2 times a day. Their restroom areas were rarely ever clean. It was a very hazardous and nasty place to store human beings. But that's the thing. These people that were buying and selling slaves didn't see these people as human beings. They simply saw these people as property, and they were being used as trade for monetary value. Now we can see the effects of the Middle Passage all the way up to recently in our own history. We see the civil rights movement, which Martin Luther King Jr. fought so hard for. We saw the unequalness of blacks and whites having to use 2 different venues for the same purpose, 2 different water fountains for whites and blacks. If you go back a little bit further, we see the Civil War. We see people are going to die fighting for a cause that they so much believed in that African Americans weren't people, that they were property and to be used for working on farms and different kinds of labor. The Middle Passage is not a time that people like to go back and talk about because of the ugliness, such as things like Hitler and concentration camps and the Holocaust. It's a time that people don't like talking about because of what it did to people. Not only did it send them into slavery, but generations are going to be sent back to Africa to set up free villages and free townships. But these people aren't accustomed to Africa because they had never lived there. So when they get sent back to Africa, we're going to see these people also die from disease because they aren't accustomed to the diseases that is in Africa. And because they were born in the New World, they're not going to know this new land. Now, the people on the Middle Passage, they're only here to make a profit. So we have families being ripped apart, torn apart, just so they could make a profit off of these people. Now, on the ship on the way from Africa to the New World, we're going to see people dying in many ways. We're going to see people dying by starvation. We're going to see people dying jumping off the boat because they knew what they were getting themselves into, so they would rather die than have to be sold into this life. Some people, they just died because they got sick because of the conditions they were in, and they couldn't take it any longer, and they just eventually passed away. The Middle Passage was a terrible time for the people, slave traders, the people of North America, the people of the West Indies, Brazil. This was a terrible time of our history. But I'm glad that I had the opportunity to just give you a quick crash course on the Middle Passage and the effects that it had on those people, and even the effects that it had on the children of those people. So thank you, and I hope you enjoyed this video.